The crimson halls of the Galactic Enforcement Authority buzzed with typical bureaucratic chaos. Commander Zixtal of the Vorthak Empire slammed his four-clawed fist against his obsidian desk, causing the holographic displays to flicker momentarily. The reptilian alien's yellow eyes burned with frustrated rage as he glared at the detention report floating before him. Kira Chen, human, age 23. Charges: destruction of Imperial property, assault on 3 Vorthak officers, resisting arrest, and... He paused, his forked tongue flicking out in disgust. Public humiliation of Imperial authority. Across from his desk, the young human woman sat defiantly in energy restraints. Her dark hair disheveled from the struggle that had brought her here. Despite the purple bruises marking her face and the torn fabric of her maintenance uniform, her brown eyes sparkled with unbroken defiance. She had been working as a repair technician on Station Zerion 7 when the incident occurred. The punishment must fit the crime. Zixtal hissed, his scaled face contorting into what passed for a smile among his species. You think you can embarrass the Empire and walk away? You humans need to learn your place in the Galactic Order. Kira remained silent, though her jaw clenched noticeably. She remembered every detail of what had led to this moment. The 3 Vorthak officers had been harassing elderly aliens in the station's market district, demanding bribes and threatening violence. When they had pushed an old Centaurian merchant to the ground and began kicking him, something inside her had snapped. The fight had been brief but spectacular. Her years of martial arts training and her work-hardened muscles had served her well against the overconfident aliens who had expected easy submission from a primitive human. She had sent all 3 officers to the medical bay before station security had finally overwhelmed her with stun weapons. I've reviewed your file, Zixtal continued, scrolling through the holographic data. Impressive technical skills, apparently. Graduated top of your class from the Terra Technical Institute. Well, we have the perfect assignment for someone of your talents. He manipulated the display, bringing up a new file that made his eyes gleam with malicious satisfaction. You're being reassigned to Workshop Bay, 94 inches the outer rim. There you will serve as assistant to one Marcus Cole, a human mechanic. Consider it a lesson in humility. Working for one of your own kind in the most backward sector of known space. Kira's eyebrows furrowed. She had never heard of the Outer Rim's Workshop Bay 94. But anything had to be better than a prison cell. What's the catch? The catch, Zixtal's voice dripped with satisfaction, is that you'll be stuck there for 5 years. No possibility of transfer, no communication with Earth, and your supervisor has full authority over your work assignments. I'm told he's quite the taskmaster. This Marcus Cole runs a small operation fixing mining equipment and cargo haulers. Probably hasn't seen another human in years. The commander leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying himself. The best part? The Outer Rim is considered punishment duty for Imperial officers too. Nothing but backwards planets, primitive species, and endless mechanical breakdowns. You'll spend your days crawling through engine compartments, and your nights sleeping in whatever hovel they assign you. 2 armed guards entered the chamber, their heavy footsteps echoing off the polished floor. Zixtal waved a dismissive claw. Take her to Transport Bay 7. The next cargo hauler to the Outer Rim leaves in 2 hours. As the guards released her restraints and roughly pulled her to her feet, Kira allowed herself a small smile. She had been prepared for much worse. A workshop assignment, even in some remote sector, was practically a vacation compared to what the Vorthak Empire usually did to humans who defied them. The journey to the Outer Rim took 18 standard days aboard a cramped cargo vessel. Kira shared the passenger compartment with a variety of alien species, most of whom seemed to be heading to the frontier for reasons they preferred not to discuss. The ship's captain, a gruff Calorian with metal implants covering half his face, spoke little and asked even fewer questions. During the long voyage, Kira had plenty of time to think about her situation. She had heard stories about the Outer Rim, a vast region of space where the Empire's control was more theoretical than practical. Pirates, smugglers, and independent colonies operated with relative freedom, as long as they paid their taxes and didn't cause too much trouble. The ship finally dropped out of hyperspace near a massive space station that dwarfed anything Kira had ever seen. The structure appeared to be built from hundreds of different ship hulls and station modules, all welded together in a chaotic but somehow functional arrangement. Docking bays of every size and configuration dotted its surface, with vessels constantly arriving and departing. "Welcome to Freehold Station," the captain announced over the intercom. "Last stop before the really wild frontier. If you're getting off here, grab your gear and get moving. I'm not waiting around." Kira gathered her few possessions, mostly her personal tools and a change of clothes, and made her way to the airlock. The station's atmosphere was breathable, though it carried the distinct smell of recycled air, fuel vapors, and something she couldn't quite identify. The docking bay was a maze of activity. Aliens of dozens of species worked on ships of every conceivable design. Sparks flew from welding operations while the sound of hammering, drilling, and hydraulic systems created a constant background din. It was exactly the kind of controlled chaos that Kira found oddly comforting. A tall figure approached her through the crowd, and Kira felt her breath catch in her throat. The man appeared to be in his 40s, with graying brown hair and intelligent blue eyes that seemed to take in everything around him. His clothes were practical, worn coveralls over a simple shirt. But something about his bearing suggested he was more than just another mechanic. "Kira Chen?" His voice was warm but carried an undertone of authority that seemed natural rather than forced. "I'm Marcus Cole. Welcome to Workshop Bay 94. She shook his offered hand, noting the calluses that spoke of years of manual labor. "Thank you for taking me on, Mr. Cole. I should warn you, the Empire considers this a punishment assignment for me." Marcus chuckled, a sound that seemed genuinely amused rather than bitter. "The Empire considers a lot of things punishment that are actually privileges. Come on, let me show you around." As they walked through the station's corridors, Kira was struck by the diversity of the population. Humans worked alongside reptilian vorthoks, insectoid klaxons, and species she couldn't even identify. More surprisingly, there seemed to be genuine cooperation, rather than the rigid hierarchy she was used to seeing in Imperial space. "The Outer Rim is different from what you're probably used to," Marcus explained as they passed a group of children, human and alien, playing together in a common area. "Out here, people tend to judge you by what you can do, not what species you are, or who your government is." They reached Workshop Bay 94, and Kira's expectations were immediately exceeded. The facility was enormous, easily the size of a small spaceport. Dozens of ships in various stages of repair filled the main floor, while elevated platforms held smaller craft and specialized equipment. The organization was impressive. Every tool had its place. Every work area was efficiently arranged. "This is bigger than I expected," Kira admitted, watching a team of technicians install a new hyperdrive core in what appeared to be a modified freighter. "We handle a lot of different projects," Marcus replied casually. "Mining operations need reliable equipment, and cargo haulers break down regularly out here. Plus, there's always someone who needs modifications for special circumstances." He led her to a smaller office area overlooking the main floor. The walls were covered with technical diagrams, ship schematics, and what appeared to be star charts of the local sector. A large desk held multiple computer terminals and several devices Kira didn't recognize. "Your quarters are on level 7, Marcus continued, handing her a keycard. "Nothing fancy, but it's clean and private. We start work at 0800 station time. Most of our projects are straightforward repair work, but I like to understand what my people are capable of before I assign the more interesting jobs." Kira nodded, though she was puzzled by something in his tone. The way he said, "my people," suggested a larger operation than what she was seeing. "How many technicians work here right now?" "About 40 on this shift. We run 3 shifts to handle the workload." Marcus moved to one of his terminals and began pulling up files. "I've reviewed your academic records. Impressive work in quantum mechanics and exotic matter theory. That's not typical training for a maintenance technician." "Oh, I wanted to understand how things really work, not just how to fix them when they break," Kira replied. "My professors thought I was wasting time on theoretical physics, but it's helped me solve problems that stumped other techs. For the first time since meeting him, Marcus looked genuinely interested rather than merely polite. Show me your toolkit. Kira opened her equipment case, revealing an impressive array of precision instruments, diagnostic devices, and several tools she had modified herself. Marcus examined them with the eye of someone who understood quality craftsmanship. You built some of these yourself, he observed, holding up a quantum field manipulator that Kira had constructed during her final year at the Institute. Standard tools don't always work when you're dealing with exotic propulsion systems, she explained. I got tired of improvising, so I started making tools that could handle unusual energy fields. Marcus set the device down carefully and looked at her with what might have been approval. I think you're going to fit in here better than the Empire expected. Tomorrow, I'll start you on something simple. We've got a cargo hauler with hyperdrive problems. After that, well, we'll see what you're really capable of. As Kira settled into her new quarters that evening, she found herself cautiously optimistic about her assignment. The room was indeed simple but comfortable. With a bed, desk, and small food preparation area, a large window offered a view of the workshop floor below, where the night shift continued their work under bright artificial lighting. She was about to turn in when her personal communicator chimed with an incoming message. The sender's identity was blocked, but the content made her blood run cold. Human designation Kira Chen. Your assignment to Workshop Bay 94 has been noted by interested parties. Be aware that Marcus Cole is not what he appears to be. Trust nothing. Reveal nothing. Your survival may depend on discretion. This message will self-delete in 10 seconds. The text vanished as promised, leaving Kira staring at a blank screen. She had been in the Outer Rim for less than a day, and already someone was warning her about her new supervisor. But who had sent the message, and what did they know about Marcus that she didn't? She moved to her window and looked down at the workshop floor. Marcus was still there, working alone on what appeared to be a complex navigational computer. Even from this distance, she could see the precision and confidence of his movements. Whatever secrets he might be hiding, the man clearly knew his way around advanced technology. The next morning, Kira reported to the workshop early, determined to prove her worth regardless of whatever intrigue might be swirling around her new assignment. Marcus greeted her with coffee, real Earth coffee, which was a luxury in this part of space, and led her to the cargo hauler he had mentioned. The Stellar Pride, he announced, patting the hull of a battered but functional-looking vessel. Captain Jorik brought her in yesterday with intermittent hyperdrive failures. The drives work fine for about 6 hours, then shut down completely for another 6. He's been stuck making micro-jumps for the past 3 weeks. Kira examined the external hyperdrive housing, noting several modifications that weren't part of the original design. Looks like someone's been tinkering with the quantum field generators. These coupling assemblies are aftermarket, and they're not properly matched to the original specifications. Good eye, Marcus said approvingly. Captain Jorik bought those upgrades from a dealer who assured him they'd increase his jump range by 30%. Instead, they're creating harmonic feedback that overloads the safety systems. Together, they spent the morning dismantling the hyperdrive assembly. Kira was impressed by Marcus's knowledge of exotic matter physics, theoretical concepts that most mechanics only understood in the most basic terms. When she mentioned the quantum resonance patterns that were causing the shutdowns, he immediately grasped the implications and suggested modifications that would eliminate the problem. Where did you study quantum mechanics? Kira asked as they worked on recalibrating the field generators. Here and there, Marcus replied vaguely. The frontier teaches you things you don't learn in formal education. When you're 3 weeks from the nearest repair station and your hyperdrive fails, you either figure it out or you die. By mid-afternoon, they had the Stellar Pride's hyperdrive running smoothly. Captain Jorik, a cheerful Centaurian with elaborate facial tattoos, was effusive in his gratitude and insisted on paying above the quoted price for the repair. You saved me at least 2 months of travel time, he declared, pressing a credit chip into Marcus's hand. And probably my life. Those Catherian pirates have been active in this sector, and a ship making micro-jumps is an easy target. After the captain departed, Marcus turned to Kira with what might have been respect, Not bad for your first day. You want to try something more challenging? He led her to a section of the workshop she hadn't seen before, where a sleek ship unlike anything she had encountered was undergoing what appeared to be major modifications. The vessel's hull was a deep black material that seemed to absorb light, and its engines were clearly not of any standard design. "What is this?" Kira asked, running her hand along the strange hull material. "Officially? A mining survey vessel that needs some upgrades." Marcus's tone suggested there was considerably more to the story. "Unofficially, it belongs to someone who needs to travel through Imperial space without being detected." Kira felt her pulse quicken. This was clearly illegal work, the kind that could land them both in an Imperial prison if they were caught. But the technology fascinated her. The hull material appeared to be some kind of sensor-absorbing composite, while the engine modifications suggested capabilities far beyond anything she had studied. "The owner needs the stealth systems upgraded to handle the latest Imperial sensor arrays," Marcus continued. "It's delicate work. One mistake and the ship becomes visible to everything from customs patrols to military sensors." "Why are you showing me this?" Kira asked carefully. Marcus met her eyes, and for a moment she saw something there that made her reassess everything she thought she knew about her new supervisor. There was intelligence there, yes, but also a depth of experience that seemed far beyond what a simple frontier mechanic should possess. "Because I think you can be trusted," he said finally. "And because the people who sent you here as punishment have no idea what they've actually done." Before Kira could ask what he meant, alarms began sounding throughout the workshop. Emergency lights bathed everything in red, and she could hear the distant sound of weapons fire. Marcus moved with sudden urgency, activating several hidden panels in the workshop walls. "What's happening?" Kira demanded. "Imperial raid," Marcus replied grimly, his hands flying over concealed control systems. "Someone must have tipped them off about our special projects." Through the workshop windows, Kira could see Imperial assault shuttles approaching the station. The distinctive angular shapes of Vorthak military vessels were unmistakable, and they were moving with the purposeful precision of a planned operation. "We need to evacuate the sensitive projects," Marcus continued, and Kira was surprised by the calm authority in his voice. "Can you handle the stealth ship's startup sequence?" "I don't know the systems. You'll figure it out," Marcus said with complete confidence. "You're better than you think you are, Kira-chen. And you're about to find out just how much the Empire underestimated you." As Imperial forces breached the station's docking bays and the sound of combat grew closer, Kira realized that her punishment assignment was about to become something far more dangerous and far more important than anyone had imagined. The Imperial assault shuttles breached Freehold Station's outer hull with explosive charges that sent vibrations throughout the massive structure. Kira found herself running alongside Marcus through corridors she hadn't known existed, following hidden passages that connected the workshop to other sections of the station. "How do you know about these tunnels?" she demanded, breathing hard as they navigated the narrow maintenance shafts. "I helped design them," Marcus replied without looking back. Freehold Station wasn't always a civilian operation. They emerged into a secure command center that made Kira's engineering mind reel. The room was filled with military-grade communication equipment, tactical displays showing the positions of Imperial forces throughout the station, and what appeared to be direct links to dozens of ships scattered across the sector. "Control. This is Marcus." He spoke into a headset while his fingers danced across multiple control panels. "Imperial raid in progress. Execute Protocol 7 immediately." "Acknowledged, sir," came a crisp reply that carried the unmistakable tone of military professionalism. "All assets moving to secure positions. Estimated completion in 12 minutes. 3. IBS on the side as resident." Kira stared at Marcus as he coordinated what was clearly a major evacuation operation. Ships were launching from hidden bays throughout the station, while others arrived to provide escort and cover fire. The tactical displays showed a level of organization and preparation that was absolutely not consistent with a simple repair shop operation. "Who are you?" she whispered. Marcus finally turned to look at her, and the casual demeanor he had maintained for the past day was completely gone. In its place was the bearing of someone accustomed to command, to making life and death decisions. to moving pieces across a galactic chessboard. "Admiral Marcus Cole, Terran Resistance Fleet," he said quietly. "And Workshop Bay 94 is the headquarters for the largest human military operation in known space." The revelation hit Kira like a physical blow. The Terran Resistance Fleet was a legend. A myth that Imperial propaganda claimed didn't exist. According to official sources, scattered human pirates occasionally caused minor problems in the Outer Rim, but nothing approaching organized military resistance. "That's impossible," she breathed. "The Empire controls all human colonies. Earth surrendered 40 years ago." "Earth's government surrendered," Marcus corrected. "The human people never did. We've been building our strength out here in the frontier, preparing for the day we can take our worlds back." Explosions echoed through the station as Imperial forces encountered the first of several defensive positions. On the tactical display, Kira could see that what had initially appeared to be a successful raid was rapidly becoming a costly siege. The Imperials had expected to find a civilian station with minimal defenses. Instead, they were facing coordinated resistance from multiple levels. "Sir, we have confirmation that the raid was triggered by intelligence from Agent Zixtal," reported a voice over the communications system. "He believed he was sending a disgraced human to a punishment assignment." Marcus allowed himself a grim smile. "Then Commander Zixtal just handed us one of the most talented young engineers in human space." "Kira, I need you to understand something very important. The Empire didn't send you here as punishment. They sent you here as a gift." The tactical situation was evolving rapidly. Imperial forces had secured several docking bays, but were meeting fierce resistance as they pushed deeper into the station. What they didn't realize was that every section they captured had already been evacuated of sensitive materials and personnel. The workshop was a legitimate business, Marcus explained as he monitored the ongoing battle. "We really do repair mining equipment and cargo haulers. But it also serves as a recruitment center and intelligence hub. Every ship that comes here, every captain we help, every crew member we meet, they all provide information about Imperial activities throughout this sector." A new voice came over the communications system, speaking with the crisp efficiency of a military intelligence officer. "Admiral, we've identified the Imperial force composition. 3 assault cruisers, 12 fighter squadrons, and approximately 2,000 ground troops. They're equipped for a major operation, not a simple raid." Marcus frowned at this information. They brought too much force for what they thought they were attacking. Someone fed them intelligence, suggesting this was a more important target than they could have known. Kira felt a chill as she remembered the anonymous message she had received the previous evening. Someone had known enough about Marcus to send a warning, which meant someone else had been watching the situation develop. "Sir," she said hesitantly, "I received a message yesterday warning me that you weren't what you appeared to be. Someone knew I was here, and they knew you were more than just a mechanic." Marcus spun around to face her, his expression sharp with concern. "What exactly did the message say?" Kira repeated the warning verbatim, noting how Marcus's face grew increasingly grim. When she finished, he was already moving to another console, his fingers flying across the holographic interface. "That message came from someone with access to our communication networks," he said grimly. "Someone who knew about your assignment before you even arrived here. We have a traitor in our organization, and they've been feeding information to the Empire." The battle for Freehold Station continued to rage, but the tactical displays showed that Imperial forces were making slower progress than they had expected. Hidden defensive positions throughout the station were extracting a heavy toll on the attackers, while civilian areas had been largely evacuated through the secret tunnel networks. "Admiral," came another report. "All critical personnel and equipment have reached secure positions. We're ready to execute the final phase of Protocol 7. Marcus hesitated for a moment, his hand hovering over a control that Kira somehow knew would change everything. "Confirmed. Execute final phase. Authorization Cole Alpha 7. The station shuddered as massive explosions rippled through its structure. On the tactical displays, Kira watched in horror as entire sections of Freehold Station began separating from the main structure. What she had taken to be a fixed installation was actually a collection of modular components, many of which were now revealing hidden propulsion systems. "The station is a ship?" she gasped. "Ships," Marcus corrected. 17 independent vessels that can operate separately or combine into the configuration you've seen. We call it a Constellation-class mobile base. There are 12 others like it scattered throughout the outer rim. The evacuation was proceeding with military precision. Imperial forces found themselves trapped on station sections that were now isolated and powerless, while the most important modules, including the command center where Marcus and Kira stood, were accelerating away from the combat zone. "This is incredible," Kira whispered, watching the tactical display as the scattered station components began forming up into what was clearly a battle fleet. "How long have you been planning this?" 43 years, Marcus replied. "Since the day after Earth surrendered. Every human who refused to accept Imperial rule. Every family that lost their world to alien occupation. Every engineer and scientist and soldier who believed humanity deserved better. They all found their way to the Resistance eventually." As if summoned by his words, the main view screen activated to show the space around what had been Freehold Station. Kira's breath caught in her throat as she saw the true scope of the operation. Hundreds of ships were emerging from what she had thought was empty space. Vessels that had been hidden by stealth systems, camouflaged as asteroids, or simply positioned beyond the range of Imperial sensors. "The Third Fleet," Marcus said with evident pride. "One of 7 major resistance formations. Each one is larger than anything the Empire believes human space forces could field." The Imperial assault force that had seemed so overwhelming minutes earlier now appeared tiny and vulnerable in the face of this unexpected revelation. Their 3 assault cruisers were surrounded by resistance vessels that included ships Kira had never seen before. Sleek destroyers with advanced weapon systems, massive carriers launching fighter squadrons, and what appeared to be several dreadnought-class vessels that dwarfed everything else in the engagement. "This is Admiral Marcus Cole to Imperial Task Force Commander." Marcus spoke into his communications system. "You are outgunned and surrounded. Withdraw your forces immediately, and no further action will be taken against you." The response came after a long pause, delivered in the harsh accent typical of Vorthak military officers. "This is Admiral Krextal. We do not negotiate with human terrorists. Prepare to be destroyed." "Your choice," Marcus replied calmly, then switched to the fleet command channel. "All ships, Imperial forces, have declined our offer of safe passage. You are authorized to engage. Target their engines and weapons systems. We want prisoners for interrogation. Ever, 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 ever." What followed was less a battle than a demonstration of overwhelming technological superiority. The resistance ships moved with precision and coordination that spoke of years of training and preparation. Their weapons were clearly more advanced than standard Imperial technology, and their tactics were unlike anything Kira had seen in official military records. Within 20 minutes, all 3 Imperial assault cruisers had been disabled and boarded. The fighter squadrons had been either destroyed or forced to surrender. Of the 2,000 Imperial troops that had participated in the raid, more than half were now prisoners of the Resistance. "How is this possible?" Kira asked, still struggling to process what she had witnessed. "The Empire has millions of ships, entire fleets that patrol every sector. How can you have built a force this powerful without them knowing?" Marcus gestured to the tactical display, which was now showing ship positions throughout a vast area of space. "The outer rim is larger than most people realize. There are thousands of star systems out here that the Empire has never properly explored, much less occupied. We've had 4 decades to establish hidden bases, build shipyards, and recruit allies." "Allies? Not every alien species is happy with Imperial rule," Marcus explained. "The Vorthaks conquered their way to power, and they've made a lot of enemies. The Centaurians provide us with advanced sensors. The Calorians supply heavy weapons, and there are at least a dozen other species that contribute resources and technology." A new voice joined the conversation as a tall woman entered the command center. She appeared to be in her 50s, with silver hair, and the bearing of a career military officer. Her uniform was similar to Marcus's but carried additional rank insignia. "Admiral Cole," she said with a slight smile. "I see our new recruit has received quite an education in her first week with us." "Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen," Marcus replied. "May I present your daughter, Kira Chen?" Kira felt the world shift beneath her feet. The woman standing before her was her mother, who had supposedly died in a transport accident when Kira was 12 years old. The funeral, the grief, the years of believing she was alone in the universe. All of it had been a carefully constructed lie. "Hello, sweetheart," Sarah said softly. "I'm sorry we couldn't tell you sooner. But you understand now why it was necessary." "You're dead," Kira whispered, her voice barely audible. "I watched them bury you. I grieved for you for 11 years. The transport accident was real," Sarah explained gently. "But we staged my death and extracted me before the ship was destroyed." The Empire couldn't know that the chief science officer of the Terra Technical Institute was actually the head of Resistance Intelligence. The implications were staggering. Kira's entire childhood, her education, her career choices, everything had been influenced by decisions made by a mother she thought was dead. The prestigious institute that had trained her, the theoretical physics courses that had seemed so impractical, the advanced engineering skills that had set her apart from her peers. It had all been preparation for this moment. "The incident with the Vorthak officers on Zirion 7, Kira said slowly, pieces of the puzzle falling into place. "That wasn't random, was it? We've been monitoring your career since you graduated," Sarah admitted. "When we learned that Commander Zixtal was looking for ways to humiliate human prisoners, we arranged for you to be in the right place at the right time to defend that Centaurian merchant. The rest was up to you. You manipulated me into a fight that got me arrested and sent here. We gave you an opportunity to do what you've always done. Stand up for people who couldn't defend themselves," Marcus interjected. "The choice to intervene was entirely yours. Just as the choice to join us is entirely yours now." Kira looked around the command center, taking in the displays showing hundreds of resistance ships, the communications channels connecting them to operations throughout the galaxy, the scope of what her people had built in secret over 4 decades of preparation. "Join you to do what, exactly?" Sarah and Marcus exchanged a look that spoke of shared knowledge and long-term planning. It was Sarah who answered, her voice carrying the weight of years of preparation and sacrifice. "To liberate humanity from imperial rule," she said simply. "To take back our colonies, free our people, and ensure that no human ever again has to live as a second-class citizen in their own galaxy. The war is coming whether we want it or not," Marcus added. "Imperial expansion is accelerating, and they're becoming more aggressive toward the remaining independent species. We can either wait for them to grow strong enough to crush us completely, or we can strike while we still have the advantage of surprise." Through the viewports of the command center, Kira could see the captured Imperial vessels being towed toward what appeared to be a massive mobile shipyard. Even as she watched, work crews were beginning the process of analyzing Imperial technology and integrating useful components into resistance designs. "How many of us are there?" she asked. "Active military personnel across all fleets, approximately 2 million, Sarah replied. "Civilians in hidden colonies and mobile populations, roughly 50 million. Allied species military forces available for joint operations, another 3 million. Ennisport, and of the million, the numbers were astounding. The Empire believed that humanity numbered only about 800 million individuals scattered across their conquered worlds, most living as laborers and technicians under alien oversight. The idea that nearly 1 human in 16 was actually part of a secret resistance movement was almost impossible to believe. "We've been very careful about recruitment," Marcus explained. "Every new member is thoroughly vetted, and information is compartmentalized. Most of our people only know about their immediate unit and mission. You're learning about the big picture because your skills and background make you valuable for strategic operations." "What kind of strategic operations?" Sarah smiled. And for the first time since this impossible reunion began, Kira saw something familiar in her mother's expression, the same look she used to get when explaining complex scientific concepts to her young daughter. "We're going to capture an Imperial dreadnought," Sarah said. "The newest, most advanced warship in their fleet. And you're going to help us do it." The plan, as Sarah and Marcus outlined it, was audacious to the point of madness. Imperial dreadnoughts were the most powerful warships ever constructed, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy an entire planet. They were also protected by security measures that made them virtually impossible to approach, much less capture. The INS Dominator is scheduled to undergo major upgrades at the Imperial Naval Yards at Vega Prime, Marcus explained, bringing up detailed schematics on the main display. For a period of approximately 6 weeks, her weapons systems and defensive shields will be offline while new technology is installed. Even disabled, a dreadnought carries a crew of 50,000, Kira pointed out. "How do you plan to overcome that many trained Imperial military personnel?" "We don't," Sarah replied. "We're going to make them think they're under attack by pirates while we infiltrate the ship and steal the quantum core data. Every Imperial ship design, every defensive protocol, every tactical doctrine, it's all stored in the dreadnought's central computer. And then we disappear, and the Empire spends the next several months trying to figure out how a group of primitive human pirates managed to penetrate the most secure installation in their space." Kira studied the schematics, her engineering mind automatically analyzing the challenges involved. The quantum core was located in the most protected section of the ship, surrounded by multiple layers of security, both physical and electronic. The data storage systems were isolated from external access and protected by encryption that was theoretically unbreakable. "You need someone who can modify Imperial security systems from the inside," she said slowly. "Someone with advanced knowledge of quantum mechanics and exotic matter theory. Someone with your specific combination of skills and background," Marcus confirmed. "The theoretical physics training your mother arranged, the practical engineering experience you've gained over the past few years, and the security clearances you still hold from your work on Imperial stations." "My clearances were revoked when I was arrested." "Officially, yes," Sarah smiled. "But the Imperial bureaucracy moves slowly, and we have people in their administrative systems. As far as the computers are concerned, Kira Chen is still a certified Level 7 technician with authorized access to quantum core systems." The scope of the Resistance's preparation was becoming clearer with every revelation. They had people inside Imperial organizations, hidden bases throughout the frontier, advanced technology that matched or exceeded Imperial capabilities. And now, they were planning an operation that would give them access to the Empire's most closely guarded military secrets. "When do we start?" Kira asked. Marcus and Sarah exchanged another look, this one carrying a different weight. It was the look of parents who were about to ask their child to risk everything for a cause they believed in. "The Dominator arrives at Vega Prime in 3 days, Marcus said. "If you're going to be part of this operation, we need to begin your preparation immediately. And I should warn you, if we're caught, the Empire won't just execute us. They'll make examples of us that will be remembered for generations." For Mark, Kira thought about the 11 years she had spent believing her mother was dead, about the Imperial officers she had seen abuse civilians without consequence, about the future humanity faced if they remained under alien rule forever. "When do we start?" she repeated. Sarah stepped forward and embraced her daughter for the first time in 11 years. "We start now," she whispered. "Welcome to the Resistance. Kira, let's go take our galaxy back." 3 days later, Kira found herself aboard the Resistance stealth ship, Phantom Strike, watching through enhanced viewports as the massive Imperial naval yards at Vega Prime grew larger with each passing hour. The facility was a testament to Imperial engineering prowess. Dozens of orbital platforms connected by massive superstructure, with construction bays large enough to hold capital ships and defensive installations that could have protected an entire planet. "Remember, once we begin the operation, there's no turning back," Marcus said quietly, reviewing the mission parameters one final time. "If something goes wrong, the Empire will know that human resistance capabilities are far beyond what they've assumed. That knowledge alone will trigger a massive military response." Kira nodded, though her attention was focused on the technical readouts streaming across her console. The past 3 days had been a whirlwind of briefings, training, and preparation that had pushed her engineering knowledge to its limits. She now understood that her theoretical physics background wasn't just useful for this mission, it was essential. The quantum core encryption isn't just complex, she had explained to the mission planning team during their final briefing. It's actually using fundamental properties of space-time itself as part of the security algorithm. Breaking it requires manipulating exotic matter states in ways that most engineers don't even know are possible. The Phantom Strike was unlike any vessel Kira had ever worked on. Its stealth capabilities were so advanced that it was effectively invisible to Imperial sensors, while its computer systems could interface directly with alien technology without triggering security protocols. More importantly, it had been specifically modified for this mission with tools and equipment that would allow them to penetrate the Dreadnought's most secure areas. Beginning final approach, reported Lieutenant Commander Torres, the ship's captain, and one of Sarah's most trusted officers. All systems showing green. We're completely invisible to their sensor arrays. Through the viewports, Kira could see their target. The INS Dominator was the largest warship she had ever seen, nearly 3 kilometers long and bristling with weapon emplacements that were currently powered down for the upgrade process. Even disabled, the ship's presence was intimidating. A reminder of the overwhelming military power that the Empire could bring to bear against any opposition. There she is, Marcus murmured, studying the massive vessel through enhanced optics. The crown jewel of the Imperial fleet. In 6 hours, she's going to become the key to humanity's freedom. The plan was elegantly simple in concept but terrifyingly complex in execution. While the Phantom Strike provided distraction by staging a fake pirate attack on a nearby cargo convoy, a small team would infiltrate the Dominator through one of its maintenance airlocks. Kira would then access the quantum core and extract the complete database of Imperial military technology, while Marcus and his team ensured their escape route remained open. The hard part isn't getting the data, Kira had explained during planning. It's getting it without leaving any trace that we were there. The quantum core systems are designed to detect any unauthorized access, even at the quantum level. We need to make our extraction look like a routine system diagnostic. And if we can't, then the Empire will know that someone with advanced knowledge of their most classified technology has been inside their most secure facility. They'll lock down everything, change all their encryption protocols, and probably start a galaxy-wide hunt for whoever was responsible. Now, as they approached the moment of truth, Kira felt a strange sense of calm. The theoretical knowledge her mother had guided her toward, the practical skills she had developed over years of hands-on work, the courage she had discovered when facing Imperial oppression. Everything had led to this moment. Initiating final phase, Torres announced. All teams, prepare for deployment. The fake pirate attack began exactly on schedule. Modified resistance fighters, disguised to look like common raiders, began harassing a cargo convoy 3 light minutes away from the naval yards. The Imperial response was immediate and overwhelming. Patrol ships raced to intercept the attackers, while the yard's defensive systems powered up to repel any assault on their facilities. They're taking the bait, Marcus observed, watching the tactical display as Imperial forces repositioned to deal with the supposed threat. All major defensive platforms are now focused on the convoy attack. We have a clear approach to the Dominator. The infiltration team consisted of just 4 people. Marcus, Kira, and 2 Special Forces operatives whose job was to handle any security issues they might encounter. Their approach vector took them through the superstructure of the naval yards themselves, using maintenance tunnels and service corridors that weren't monitored as carefully as the main approaches. Remember, Marcus said as they prepared to board the Dreadnought, we have exactly 43 minutes before the fake attack runs its course. After that, Imperial security will return to normal levels, and our escape window will close. The maintenance airlock they had targeted was exactly where Resistance intelligence had indicated it would be. The access codes provided by their sources within the Imperial bureaucracy worked perfectly, allowing them to board the massive warship without triggering any alarms. Inside the Dominator, Kira was struck by the sheer scale of Imperial engineering. The corridors were wide enough to drive vehicles through. The walls were lined with advanced materials she had only read about in theoretical journals, and the ambient energy fields generated by the ship's power systems were unlike anything she had ever experienced. The quantum core is 17 decks down and 2 kilometers toward the bow, Marcus whispered, consulting a handheld scanner that was somehow mapping their route through the ship's interior. Security sensors show minimal crew presence in that section due to the upgrade work. They moved quickly but carefully through the ship's interior, avoiding the few areas where Imperial personnel were still working on upgrade installations. The artificial gravity felt slightly different from what Kira was used to, and the air itself carried a faint metallic taste that suggested exotic atmospheric filtering systems. "Here," Marcus said finally, stopping before what appeared to be an ordinary bulkhead. "The quantum core chamber is behind this wall." Kira examined the access portal, noting the multiple layers of security that protected the ship's most sensitive systems: biometric scanners, quantum encryption locks, and what appeared to be some kind of exotic matter detection grid, all stood between them and their objective. "This is going to take a few minutes," she said, connecting her modified tools to the security interface. "The encryption is adaptive. It's actually learning from my attempts to bypass it and adjusting its defenses accordingly." "How long?" 15 minutes, maybe 20 if the quantum locks are more sophisticated than I expect," Marcus nodded grimly. They had planned for this contingency, but it still left them with very little margin for error. While Kira worked on the security systems, he and the other team members established a perimeter and monitored for any signs of Imperial crew activity. The process of bypassing Imperial security was like solving a puzzle that kept changing its own rules. Every time Kira thought she had found a way through one layer of protection, the system would adapt and present her with a new challenge. The quantum encryption was particularly troublesome. It used properties of matter at the subatomic level that required precise manipulation of exotic energy fields. "Got it," she finally whispered, as the final security barrier dissolved and the access portal slid open. "But the system logged my access attempt. We've got maybe 10 minutes before automated diagnostics flag this as an anomaly." The quantum core chamber was a cathedral-like space filled with crystalline structures that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. The actual data storage systems were housed within a matrix of exotic matter that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Even approaching the core required careful navigation through energy fields that could disintegrate unprotected matter. "This is incredible," Kira breathed, studying the quantum matrix with instruments that her mother had helped design specifically for this mission. "The data storage capacity is orders of magnitude beyond anything we thought was possible. They're not just storing information. They're storing the quantum states of entire tactical scenarios. Can you extract it? I can do better than that." Kira connected her equipment to the quantum core interface, her fingers flying across control surfaces that responded to thoughts as much as touch. "I can copy the entire matrix without leaving any trace that it was accessed. It'll take a complete quantum dump of their entire strategic database." The extraction process required precise timing and absolute concentration. Any mistake could not only alert Imperial security, but potentially damage the quantum core itself, which would certainly trigger investigations that would expose their infiltration. "Warning," came Torres's voice over their encrypted communication channel. "Imperial patrol ships are returning from the convoy engagement. You have 8 minutes before full security protocols are restored." "Almost finished," Kira replied, watching as terabytes of classified Imperial data flowed into her storage devices: military ship designs, tactical doctrines, star charts showing Imperial military positions throughout the galaxy, diplomatic communications with allied species, and most importantly, the complete order of battle for all Imperial fleets. "This is everything," she whispered in amazement. "Fleet compositions, base locations, supply lines, communication protocols. With this information, the Resistance can predict and counter Imperial military movements for years to come." "Then let's get out of here," Marcus said urgently. They had just sealed the quantum core chamber and begun their withdrawal when alarms started sounding throughout the dreadnought. Not the general quarters alert they had expected when their time ran out, but something much more urgent and immediate. All stations," came an announcement over the ship's communication system. "Security breach detected in Sector 7. All personnel report to emergency stations immediately." "That's not us," Marcus said grimly. "Sector 7 is on the other side of the ship." The implications hit them all simultaneously. There was another infiltration team aboard the Dominator, and they had been detected. Whether they were working for the same cause or represented some other faction entirely, their presence meant that Imperial security would now be searching the entire ship for intruders. New extraction plan, Marcus decided quickly. We can't reach our original exit point without going through areas that are now swarming with Imperial security. Torres, bring the Phantom Strike to emergency pickup coordinates Delta 7. Understood. Be advised. Imperial fighter patrols are launching from all nearby platforms. Our stealth capabilities are going to be tested. They moved rapidly through the ship's corridors, now forced to take a much more direct route toward their new extraction point. The sounds of Imperial crew members responding to the security alert echoed throughout the vessel, while emergency lighting cast everything in harsh red illumination. Contact front, one of Marcus's Special Forces operatives reported, as they rounded a corner to find themselves facing a squad of Imperial Marines who were clearly searching for intruders. The firefight was brief but intense. Imperial energy weapons filled the corridor with deadly light, while Marcus's team responded with advanced resistance firearms that were clearly superior to anything the Imperials had expected to face. Within seconds, all 6 Imperial Marines were down, but the sound of the battle would certainly bring more enemy forces. Move, move, Marcus shouted, leading them toward the nearest emergency airlock. Torres, we need pickup now. 30 seconds out, came the reply. Be advised. We're going to have company on our exit vector. 3 Imperial patrol ships are moving to intercept. They reached the airlock just as the Phantom Strike materialized outside, its stealth systems dropping long enough to extend a docking tube. As they ran toward the connecting tunnel, Kira could hear the sound of Imperial forces converging on their position from multiple directions. Go, go, go. Marcus pushed her toward the tunnel entrance just as energy blasts began impacting the airlock walls behind them. Torres! Get us out of here! The Phantom Strike's acceleration pressed them into their seats as the ship fled the naval yards at maximum speed. Through the viewports, Kira could see Imperial patrol ships in pursuit, their weapons firing continuously as they tried to target a ship that kept vanishing from their sensors. Stealth systems at maximum, Torres reported. But we're too close to their platforms. They can track us by our engine emissions, even if they can't get a direct sensor lock. How long until we can jump to hyperspace? Minimum safe distance is 12 minutes at current acceleration. We can make it, but it's going to be close. The chase continued as the Phantom Strike raced away from Vega Prime, dodging through asteroid fields and using sensor shadows from the system's outer planets to confuse their pursuers. Imperial reinforcements were arriving constantly, cruisers, destroyers, and eventually what appeared to be a full battle squadron dispatched from the nearby fleet base. They're treating this as a major incident, Marcus observed, watching the tactical display as more and more Imperial vessels joined the pursuit. Whatever the other infiltration team was after, the Empire considers this a serious security breach. Can they track us to the rendezvous point? Kira asked. Not with this level of stealth technology, Torres replied confidently. Once we reach hyperspace, we'll be untraceable. The jump to hyperspace came just as the Imperial pursuit force was closing to weapons range. One moment they were surrounded by enemy ships in normal space. The next they were traveling faster than light toward a meeting point that existed only in highly classified resistance navigation databases. Mission accomplished, Marcus said with evident satisfaction. Kira, what you extracted from that quantum core is going to change everything. With access to complete Imperial strategic planning, we can start preparing for operations they won't see coming until it's too late to stop them. The rendezvous took place in a star system that didn't appear on any Imperial charts. One of thousands of locations that the Resistance had discovered during their decades of exploration in the Outer Rim. Waiting for them was a fleet that made Kira's breath catch in her throat. Over 300 ships hung in space around a massive mobile base that dwarfed even the largest Imperial installations she had seen. Carriers, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and countless smaller vessels, all bearing the markings of the Terran Resistance fleet. And at the center of the formation, a command ship that could only be described as magnificent. The TRS Liberation, Marcus said proudly. Fleet Admiral Chen's flagship, and the most advanced warship ever built by human hands. As their shuttle approached the massive vessel, Kira could see that it incorporated technology she hadn't known existed. The hull appeared to be composed of materials that shifted and flowed like liquid metal, while weapon systems of unknown design dotted its surface. Most impressively, the ship seemed to be surrounded by some kind of energy field that bent light itself. "How is this possible?" she whispered. 43 years of preparation," Marcus replied. "Every human genius who refused to accept imperial rule. Every alien ally who shared their technology with us. Every resource we could salvage or steal or trade for. It all went into building a fleet that could challenge imperial supremacy." They were met at the Liberation's docking bay by Sarah Chen, who had clearly been waiting anxiously for news of the mission's success. The reunion between mother and daughter was warmer this time, tempered by the shared knowledge of what they had just accomplished together. "The data from the quantum core is beyond anything we had hoped for," Kira reported, as they made their way to the ship's strategic planning center. "Complete Imperial military databases, tactical doctrines, fleet positions, supply line information, and something else. Evidence of internal conflicts within the Empire itself." "What kind of conflicts?" "Several subject species are in various stages of revolt," Kira explained, reviewing the information she had absorbed during the data extraction. "The Altarians have been conducting sabotage operations for over a year. The Rigelians are refusing to meet their tribute obligations, and there are signs that some Vorthak military commanders are questioning Imperial expansion policies." The strategic implications were staggering. The Empire, which had appeared monolithically powerful from the outside, was actually dealing with growing internal instability. More importantly, the data revealed that Imperial military forces were stretched thinner than their propaganda suggested, with significant gaps in their defensive coverage that could be exploited. "This changes our entire strategic picture," Sarah said, as she reviewed the intelligence summaries. "We're not facing an invulnerable enemy. We're facing an empire that's already showing cracks in its foundation." "What's our next move?" Marcus asked. Sarah smiled, and Kira saw in her mother's expression the same determination that had driven her to fake her own death and spend 11 years building a resistance movement in secret. "We're going to give the galaxy something it hasn't seen in 4 decades, Sarah said. "A free human fleet, operating in open space, challenging Imperial authority wherever we find it. The age of hiding in the shadows is over." Over the following weeks, as news of the Dominator infiltration spread throughout Imperial space, the effects of the operation became clear. Imperial security protocols were tightened to unprecedented levels. Military commanders were reassigned, as the High Command tried to identify how their most secure installation had been penetrated. And most importantly, rumors began spreading that human resistance capabilities were far beyond what anyone had imagined. "The psychological effect is as important as the intelligence we gained," Marcus explained to Kira as they watched resistance fleets preparing for their next operations. "Every Imperial commander now has to wonder what other capabilities we might have that they don't know about. That uncertainty will make them cautious, defensive, reactive, instead of proactive. And while they're trying to figure out how we did the impossible," Sarah added, "we'll be using their own strategic intelligence against them. We know where their fleets are positioned, what their response protocols call for, how their supply chains are organized. For the first time since the war began, we have the advantage." The first open engagement between Imperial and Resistance forces took place 3 months later, when a Resistance battle group intercepted an Imperial convoy carrying siege equipment to the Altarian colonies. The battle was brief and decisive. Imperial forces found themselves facing tactics they had never encountered before, while their opponents seemed to anticipate every move they made. When word of the Resistance victory reached Earth and the other conquered human worlds, the effect was electric. For the first time in 4 decades, humanity had openly defied Imperial authority and won. Recruitment for the Resistance increased dramatically, while Imperial garrisons on human worlds found themselves dealing with increasingly bold acts of sabotage and rebellion. "This is just the beginning," Kira said, standing on the bridge of the Liberation, as it led a fleet of over 800 ships toward their next objective. "The Empire thinks they're facing a rebellion. They have no idea they're actually facing a revolution. Through the viewports, she could see the first of many battles that would reshape the galaxy. Human ships flew alongside vessels provided by alien allies, all united in their determination to end imperial domination. And at the center of it all, a young woman who had been sent to the Outer Rim as punishment had instead become the key to humanity's liberation. The Empire had intended to humiliate Kira Chen by assigning her to work for a mere mechanic in the frontier. Instead, they had delivered one of their most talented engineers directly into the hands of the most dangerous human alive. A man who commanded not just thousands of galaxies, but the hope and determination of every free being in the universe. The war for galactic freedom had begun, and humanity was no longer fighting it alone.